Sorry about that. Spencer German with you from Browns, the Cleveland Browns at SI. Excited to be with you from Berea as we reflect on day 6 of OTAs, 9 total OTA practices, 3 more coming your way next week. But it was a big one today specifically because it was the first opportunity for us in the media to get our a look at Deshaun Watson throwing the football with media present. And I got to be honest, like as much fanfare and buzz as there was about this day being a monumental sort of thing on the calendar in terms of his recovery, his rehab, his process to get back on the field, it was a little bit anticlimactic, I think is maybe a good way to put it, just because like Deshaun at this point, guys, and I want to make this very clear because I understand, videos get put out on social media and people love to, fans especially, react to every individual throw and say, well, this means this or this means that. I don't know that we can draw any conclusions about Deshaun Watson and his readiness or his effectiveness or what type of player and quarterback he's going to be next season based on what we saw today, day 6 of voluntary OTAs. I just don't think that's the case. I don't think it would be fair to Deshaun to do that. I don't think it would be fair for fans to do that for a team that they're obviously looking forward to building off of a year where they made the playoffs and seeing Deshaun, the trade for Deshaun sort of come to fruition, the ROI of that paying off finally in year 3 of this deal with him. So I want to get that out of the way initially because I don't think there was any major conclusions to be drawn from what we saw. But I did think it was important to talk about because it was our first time getting a chance to see him throw. Now, in terms of his involvement, it's also important to know that he wasn't involved in certain phases of practice. Those phases included the 7-on-7 drills, the 11-on-11 drills. So basically anything that involved actually throwing against the defense or defensive players, it was Jameis Winston handling all those reps and the other quarterbacks working in, Tyler Huntley most notably, DTR still sort of off on the side, not doing anything as he's still recovering from his own injury. But it was kind of that rotation of Jameis and Jameis Winston and Tyler Huntley working in at the quarterback position during those drills. But the parts that we did see Deshaun throw was a lot of kind of the individual work, the work where he was mixed in with the skill position players, handing off the football, faking handoffs, throwing it out to running backs, and then throwing it downfield to receivers against air. And then that next sort of phase, which was more of an installation type phase, where he was actually out there with the entirety of the offensive line in front of him, skill positions out on routes, going in motion, all that different stuff, commanding the offense, conducting the offense, and throwing the ball around a little bit. And that's where you got to see him throw the most. There were some not great throws. There were some of the dirted balls that have kind of become part of his arsenal in recent performances for Cleveland that kind of become a staple since he joined this team, which again, I'm not drawing any conclusions from that. It's kind of where you would expect him to be at this phase in his recovery. There were a few overthrows. I know one at least made its way on social media that people were talking about because I've seen it out there. That's going to happen. There was also some good throws. There was a really good throw that I actually captured. You can find it on my social media handle at Spencito_, where he threw this deep ball about 30 yards to Elijah Moore, perfectly placed in the end zone, in stride. Again, it was against air, but it was a mix. Like there were some good throws in there. There were some okay throws in there. There were some not great throws in there. And I think the biggest takeaway I had from watching him throw today was that none of the throws looked like it was anything strenuous. It doesn't look like Deshaun is going through the process of really like revving up and letting it rip, whether it's a slant route that he's throwing or whether it's a deep ball that he's throwing. And again, that is all part of this plan. He kind of laid it out a little bit back in April when everybody reported for voluntary workouts at that time. And he said, like, spring is going to be more about being conservative. When we get to training camp, that's where the training wheels come off a little bit, and they're going to try to open me up to do a little bit more. I think that should be the expectation from fans. And again, I wouldn't draw any major conclusions away from what we saw Deshaun Watson doing today or any one or two individual clips that you see out on social media today that people are talking about and trying to turn into a story. It's Deshaun still working his way back from a shoulder injury, still only doing limited work and limited throwing. And it's, from all accounts, Ken Dorsey talked about it after practice, and based on what Deshaun kind of laid out before we even got to this phase of the program, it's also where Deshaun sort of expected to be. So no surprises there. I don't think it's this big hubbub. I will say Ken Dorsey, I brought up that pass to Elijah Moore on the vertical route down the sideline, and Ken Dorsey, he did say that was maybe something new for Deshaun. Like he hasn't seen him throw a lot of deep balls like that throughout OTAs so far. So to see him do that was a good thing. It was something new, and it's another step in the right direction. So all in all, I would chalk today up as, yes, a milestone for Deshaun, throwing in front of the media for the first time. He feels healthy enough to be able to go out there and do some things, throw the football around a little bit, and be involved. But the approach from the team, the approach from his individual doctors, his own approach still remains, let's play this thing safe, let's be conservative, and we'll see what things look like when we get to veteran minicamp, if he's doing a little bit more. And then that'll pave the way for training camp for him to really start revving things up. And we'll get a better sense of where he's at, I think, at that time of the calendar year, the NFL schedule, the NFL calendar in August. And then we can have a bigger conversation about it. But don't read too much into what we saw or talked about it today. And I actually wrote a piece detailing much of the same things over at NFL or si.com/NFL/Browns, where you can see sort of my insightful thoughts on just what we saw from Deshaun today, similar to this video. I also do want to note, though, guys, some of the just another thing that I've kind of picked up on as you talk about this new offense with Ken Dorsey, and he did talk after practice about just still prioritizing. Listen, this is a new offense. We got a lot of new players. We need to try to get them in that installation period, especially acclimated to it, even if Deshaun can't go. And you're seeing a lot of that. You're seeing Jameis Winston run the offense and continue to do the things that you would normally do. And it's up to Deshaun to kind of take those mental reps and get himself prepared to be out there at some point and be doing more of those things. And Ken Dorsey also kind of put it on himself and his coaching staff to be able to, hey, it's up to us to get everybody on the same page, including Deshaun, help him through that process as he rehabs and have him ready to go by the start of the season. And that's all part of the plan for him and the offense as a whole. But a couple just nuances that I've noticed both this week and last week that I think are worth mentioning. A lot of shotgun. And I know that's been a big sticking point for people who follow this team. Deshaun maybe thrives in that better. That's where he should be in. You're seeing a lot more of that out on the field. There was a couple times where Deshaun started under center, then backed out into shotgun. I think you're going to start to see a lot more of that in the offense this year. And you'll see even more of it as we get deeper and deeper into the preseason calendar and getting ready for the start of the 2024 campaign. It's going to be a lot of stuff with him deeper in the pocket, in the shotgun. And that is by design to hopefully make Deshaun more comfortable and run a system that he is hopefully going to thrive in. I also picked up this from last week, and I did write about this again over at si.com/NFL/Browns last week. But when Jerry Jeudy was here, he was not here today. But when he was here last week, you saw him being moved around a lot. He was outside, he was inside receiver, he was even in the backfield at times. And I'm curious to see what that means maybe for his role, if they're trying to fit him into that almost Elijah Moore package that they had sort of planned for last year that didn't ever really come to fruition and didn't really work out the way that they wanted. And if that's maybe something that they envisioned him doing throughout the season. So just a couple different wrinkles, a couple different nuances that we're seeing. There is a lot of motion in the way that they do things and when they're sort of set the offensive line, guys moving around, doing different things. I think that's an encouraging sign because the Browns didn't use a lot of motion last year. And I think there's going to be a big uptick in that in Ken Dorsey's offense as well, which is characteristic to what he did in Buffalo. So just some things to keep an eye on, some food for thought. But the biggest point of this conversation I wanted to have was mostly just about the idea that, listen, I understand everyone wants to take every little bit and piece and video of Deshaun Watson and find some sort of takeaway from it. I think the big takeaway really is that there aren't a lot of takeaways right now. It's all part of the process. It's a conservative one, which is probably the right thing for the organization to do anyway, as they try to, again, realize that return on investment in the player that they traded 3 first-round picks for and gave the massive contract to. They don't want to rush him back and derail anything. They're going to take their time with it, and that's okay. We'll see what it looks like at veteran minicamp in 2 weeks. See what he looks like, especially at training camp as he gets himself even more ready for the start of the regular season. He has promised, as we know, that he'll be ready for week 1 of the season, and that is still the plan by all accounts from Deshaun, from the team, from the doctors, from everybody. Appreciate you guys checking in from Berea. After day 6 of OTAs, we have tons of stuff going on over at si.com/NFL/Browns, covering stuff that was talked about today, stuff that we saw today out on the field, You can find all that over there. And as always, you can find more content like this, including today's press conferences from all three coordinators. We talked to Bubba Ventrone, Jim Schwartz, Ken Dorsey himself, as well as backup quarterback Jameis Winston. All those as well over at the Browns Digest YouTube channel. I appreciate you guys watching all along. I'll be back with you next week for week 3 of OTAs as they wrap up that next phase of the program. I look forward to talking to you guys then. Otherwise, take care and keep on following along at si.com/NFL/Browns.